You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Alabama. So, Mackenzie?
Yes, Lauren?
Let's get scary.
Whoop, whoop.
Welcome back to Virginia, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
How was your trip?
It was lovely. I had a great time. I went and visited my friend Grace in Charleston.
Oh, we like Charleston.
We love Charleston. We went to the same bar that we went to for your
fun.
And yeah, I just had a good time hanging out with friends. I feel like it was nice because I got to see like the local spots.
Yeah, not super touristy spots where you go when you're only visiting for,
exactly,
without anyone who knows the area.
Went on a boat ride.
Oh, I know. I was so jealous. That looked so amazing.
My back hurts because my bum was slammed into the boat. Because we went onto the ocean.
Oh, fun. Could you see any like shadows in the water?
No, because we were going so fast.
Oh, that's good then.
And because we were going so fast and trying to maneuver over the waves, it was like my
butt
would slam into the seat, which like my butt's fine, but my lower back is kind of sore.
It happens as we age.
But it was a lot of fun. We did lots of Jello shots.
Oh, I mean the perfect summer drink.
Exactly.
Shooter,
Yeah, whatever they are. We had crab legs.
Oh, yum.
Which was good. What else? We went to the
beach.
We
did crabs on Saturday, too.
What a coinky dink.
Oh, I know. Not crab legs, the whole actual crab.
Yeah, they started talking about that, and I said, no, I don't want the whole crab. I just want the legs.
Well, also, I noticed, in North Carolina, at least when we went for vacation, I know you're in South Carolina, but they didn't have just, like, crab places. They only had Alaskan king crabs, or you could go buy the crabs live, but then you have to cook them on your own, and I was like, no. So, yeah, it's not, like, a big thing there. Not as big as it is in Maryland.
I don't know where they got their crab legs.
Was it the Alaskan crab legs?
No, because those are the big ones, right?
Yeah, they're like this big.
I think they were, I don't know.
Oh.
But they were yummy. It was delicious.
Well, that sounds fun.
It was a great time. I didn't do anything spooky because I don't do that.
If you were with me, you would have done something spooky.
You would have made me do something
I would
spooky.
have, yes.
So.
I was just here by my lonesome with Roy.
You left me for a whole week.
I don't want to hear it.
So.
You left me for a weekend when Joe was also gone. All by my lonesome.
A weekend.
Okay, a weekend. Same thing.
Whatever.
I didn't have any too creepy moments by myself, which was good. Except when the ladder fell at midnight and terrified me and Roy. But other than that, we were okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Anything spooky? No. No spooky things.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other spooky things.
I actively avoid them if I can.
I did not watch any scary movies, though.
I watched Men in Black yesterday.
That's not scary, though.
I know, but it's got, like, aliens and stuff.
That is true.
We talk about that stuff sometimes.
Yeah, we do. We've talked about aliens before. All right, so as you heard with Alabama, we are circling back around, which is really exciting.
We're still not going to go in alphabetical order, so don't think that just because we're starting with Alabama means we're going in alphabetical order.
We just had a reason to start with Alabama.
Exactly.
We got a request, so we are doing this one. But, so the notes that we are doing at the beginning of the episode, it is still fun to do state facts because sometimes you don't get to hear these weird things about your state. So it's not going to have the same kind of order as it did last time. This time around, it's just going to have a ton of facts. Not all scary, just some facts. So,
just information.
Information about the state. So do you want to read these facts, Mackenzie?
I would love to. So Alabama is the only state whose official state drink is an alcoholic beverage, the Cognac Ridge Alabama Fine Whiskey.
That's how you pronounce cognac?
Yes.
Wow.
I was about to say, I'm so proud of myself.
That does not look like it at all. That is very impressive.
The fact that my mind is just, it knew that. I can't believe it. I'm really proud of myself.
Are we sure? I'll believe you.
Go ahead, look it up.
Coneca.
No. No way. No way. Hold on.
Yeah, Coneca. It says one of the iconic businesses in the county, Coneca Sausage, and it says 15 of Alabama's most mispronounced place names. Coneca.
I bet it's spelled, they pronounce it cognac.
Coneca.
How do you spell cognac? Oh, it's with a G. You're probably going to not edit that part out. And
no,
put
I'm
it in
going to keep
there
that in there for you.
It looks so dumb. I can't read. Sorry.
Sorry to burst your bubble there.
God, I was so proud of myself for like 30 seconds.
I was really impressed for 30 seconds, too. People in Alabama are like, no, that's not right.
I'm sorry if people in Alabama. Coneca, which is phonetic, which would make more sense. So, Conecuh Ridge, Alabama fine whiskey. Alabama actually introduced Mardi Gras. It was introduced in Mobile in 1703. The first rocket that brought humans to the moon.
The first rocket that brought humans to the moon.
Which just sounds...
That's how it was worded in an article, and I just didn't want to change it too much.
Something other than a human gone to the moon?
Monkeys, dogs.
They've gone to the moon?
Mhm.
I thought they just went to space.
Maybe they circled the moon.
Okay. Anyway, the first rocket that brought humans to the moon was actually made in Alabama at the Marshall Space Flight Center. It was named Saturn V. And Huntsville is known as the rocket capital of the world.
That's where Joe's friend Dave lives. Hi, Dave.
NASA.
Yeah.
There's actually a historical house in Alabama called Sweet Home.
So it's Sweet Home Alabama. Isn't that cute?
Love that movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. On February 7th, 1818... I talk about that county.
Wait, I do too.
What?
Yeah. I literally had a note under this that said, remember that county, but I deleted it so I could say, remember that county, because I talk about it.
I mean, it's very brief. It's not like a huge part of my story, but I talk about it.
Oh, wow.
OMG. Blount County was created, which actually makes it older than the state. The Black Pearl from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies was made at Steiner Shipyard in Bayou La Batre. The oldest red-piled chicken... What's a red-piled chicken?
A chicken.
Oh.
Just like a certain type of chicken.
Kind of chicken?
Yeah.
Lived in Bessemer to the ripe old age of 16.
Jeez.
Extinct giant land sloth bones were found in Alabama. They could grow up to 9 feet tall and weigh more than 2 tons.
Picture that walking around.
Did you know that the reason why Alfred Wegener, who came up with the idea of continental drift and Pangea, the proof of that, so to speak, was because of the types of fossils that they found?
Oh, that's cool.
And if you go to like the Appalachian Mountains, they find like shells.
Oh, I've heard that, yeah.
It was covered by water.
Oh, that's cool.
5th grade facts for you.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama houses the world's only lost luggage store. Wikipedia was invented in Alabama. The Civil War began after a telegram message. That telegram message was sent from Alabama. Shocker.
Oh, right.
The Alabama state flag is a little sketch.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Just missing some things, but it could be very similar to another type of flag.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep. Ranked as one of the most religious states in the U.S., along with Mississippi. Again, shocked.
Yeah.
Alabama is the 30th largest state in the country with an area of 52,419 square miles. That's 30th. It's not very big then.
Mm-mm.
It's not high on the list.
No, it's not.
Alabama had a campaign that would impose tougher punishments for animal abusers. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Gucci's law.
Yeah.
Gucci's law made first-degree animal cruelty punishable by up to 10 years in prison.
And I think Gucci was a pit bull. I think I talked about this at work recently because my coworker is like an animal lover, and
Mhm.
so we talk about animals often.
Well.
She helped me save bees at work before. Everyone else made fun of us. Well, it was on the road and it couldn't fly, and I didn't want it to get smushed, and it was still alive, so we picked it up with a little stick and brought it over to the grass.
There was one family vacation we went on in North Carolina somewhere. I don't remember where. But my sister and I were hanging out in the little hot tub on our balcony, and there was a bumblebee that fell in, and we saved it.
Oh, see,
So.
so you all are going to save little bumblebees and such.
A bumblebee, yes.
Yeah, not a wasp or anything.
No.
Yeah, I'll save a bumblebee.
Because they can't hurt me.
They can sting you.
I thought bumblebees don't
Why
sting.
No, bumblebees can sting. Joe thought the same thing. Everyone thinks bumblebees can't sting.
But they don't sting.
They will not usually sting, but they can sting. They're peaceful insects and will only sting when they feel cornered or when their hive is disturbed.
Fair.
Yes. But they can sting.
Okay, well, there you
But most likely they're not gonna.
Okay. 3 Bigfoot movies have been filmed in Alabama. The world's largest office chair is located in Aston.
I think that's Aniston.
I said it and I knew it was wrong immediately.
I heard the questioning in your voice.
Yep. It is made from 10 tons of steel. Why?
Because they can.
People are so unnecessary sometimes. Alabama has the Natural Bridge Rock, which is the largest natural bridge east of the Rockies. Virginia also has a natural bridge.
They do.
Mm-hmm. Alabama is home to DeSoto Caverns. The lady the art teacher at my school. That's her name.
Oh. Took us a long time to get there.
I know. Which is the nation's first official cave. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I have a really bad experience in a cave. It was when I went to my one and only sleepaway camp. Probably one of the last times I went camping, because after this traumatic experience, I never want to go again. I was all by my lonesome, didn't have a single friend. My sister wouldn't come with me.
Aw.
And I was 10. And because, you know how like I was older or younger than everyone? Because, yeah. So my mom was like, oh, we'll put you in the older age group because there'll be people, you know, that you're
great and stuff.
right.
Yeah.
The youngest in that group was like 13
Aw.
besides me. So I was the baby. I was also a crybaby.
Yes.
You didn't even know me at this time, okay?
I knew you like 2 years later.
Yeah, well, a year later. Because
later.
It was before going into 5th grade. So part of our excursion is we went to explore a cave. And you would hate it because you have to go down into this like whole thing, and then you climb back out, and you go like into this, you crawl through this tunnel. But you have to crawl, like you can't.
Ew.
Yeah, so you crawl, and then, I don't know, you get to other open parts. But, you know, we had the whole headlights and all that kind of good stuff. It's very dark.
Spelunking doesn't sound like the thing I would ever want to do.
No, well, so then me, being terrified because we're in the dark and in a cave, we're coming back to leave the cave, and they're like, okay, well, who wants to go first and be like, you know, we did spotting, you know, hold the ladder, whatever. I was like, me, I want to get the fuck out of here. So I crawl through the hole, climb down the ladder, and I'm holding it for the next person. Doing my job as a great spotter. This bitch slips. And instead of moving the fuck out of the way, my mind was like, you have to hold this ladder.
I have to spot her.
So I broke her fall.
Oh.
And I must say, I had to have been knocked out. Like, the last thing I saw was this bitch's butt. Like, you know? So I opened my eyes, and everyone is around her. Oh my God, are you okay?
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm the one whose faces got smushed.
Oh.
And so then I taste blood. So of course I immediately start freaking out. I have like one of my counselors like sweatshirt to hold the blood and not get it down my body. Hold the blood. Climbed out, and one of the other counselors was like a volunteer fireman, and I was begging, worshiping any god that would listen that my nose was broken so I could go home.
Was it broken?
No.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's my experience with the cave. This state has one of the country's highest deaths by lightning per capita. You know, I would have thought like one of the states in the middle.
I would have thought that too.
Yeah,
like one of those flat states.
Yeah, just given the amount of tornadoes.
Yeah.
Located in Clark County is the Mount Nebo Baptist Church Cemetery. This cemetery includes tombstones that feature death masks that were cast from the people who were buried underneath them.
Yeah, so they would like do a plaster mask on top of the people who were dead, and then that like face goes onto their tombstone.
Oh.
Which is interesting, but also kind of morbid.
That's a little weird.
Yeah.
Michael McDowell was a native Alabama resident. He is known for writing the script for Beetlejuice. Alabama is home to the man who Gee, I wonder who gave you this fact. Alabama is home to the man who discovered more than 300 different uses for peanuts, George Washington Carver. And some other famous people from Alabama are Channing Tatum, he's from Cullum. Helen Keller is from Tuscumbia, maybe. Rosa Parks and Lionel Richie are from Tuskegee, and Laverne Cox is from Mobile.
So yeah, some interesting facts about Alabama.
So Lauren, what are you telling us about today?
Okay, so this case is one of those that, again, hits a little bit closer to home. Back in December, a woman named Brittany from a Facebook group that I'm part of messaged me asking if I could cover her sister's case. So, of course, I wanted to, so I reached back out to her to ask if it was still okay for me to cover the case, so that's what I'll be covering today.
Wonderful.
So I want to give a brief trigger warning for the case. I will mention a little bit of abuse and suicide. So today I will be covering the murder of Breana Noojin Nix. On March 2nd, 2020, around noon, Brittany Nugent received a call no one ever wants to receive. Her brother-in-law, Stephen Nix, informed her that her sister, Brianna, had tried to kill herself and that Brittany needed to get there immediately. Flying through stop signs and red lights, Brittany quickly arrived at the Nix residence in Hayden, Alabama, to see emergency responders already there trying to revive Brianna. Unfortunately, she didn't make it.
No.
So a little bit about her early life. Brianna Lee Nugent Nix was born on May 13th, 1987. At the time, Brianna was 32 years old and was a registered nurse in Alabama. She had been a nurse for 12 years. I want to quickly note, I got a lot of really incredible information from Gavin Fish. He investigates cold cases and reports his findings. His goal is to bring justice to those who deserve justice.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
Yeah, he created a really, really great timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I also listened to the Killer Queens episode, who also did a really great job. So they're a podcast, so I listened to one of their episodes. From a young age, Brianna was often thought of as being shy and quiet, but that would all fade away and her bright, bubbly personality would come out when she was comfortable around you. She was smart, silly, and was known for always being able to make people laugh. She cared deeply for others, so it seemed to be a no-brainer that when she went off to college, she was determined to get her nursing degree, which she did. Brianna and her sister Brittany had a very close relationship. The two either saw or spoke to each other almost every day. Brianna was a very determined person. After earning her nursing degree, she began working full-time in the surgical ICU at Princeton Medical Center.
That's awesome.
Princeton Medical Center. She also worked part-time at the nearby medical facility. When Brianna was 21 in 2008, she met a man named Stephen Nix. They dated for 2 years and ended up getting married shortly after in 2010. They were living in Hayden, Alabama together. Stephen didn't seem as determined as his wife, though. He worked the occasional odd job for friends and family, but was never able to really hold down a job. He had worked at a local hospital as a janitor, but had been fired. He then got a job working at a factory, but not long after, was again fired. He was unemployed and would often brag, I say that in quotes, about being a stay-at-home husband, when in reality he was sitting at home doing nothing but playing video games.
So we already don't like Steve.
Yeah. So at first, everything seemed fine in their relationship. There was nothing concerning the family about the two, but over time, Stephen started to become controlling, and that started to cross into becoming emotionally abusive. And even though he was making close to nothing, he was in control of the couple's finances.
Men.
Yeah, it was so bad that he would track every little thing that Brianna bought, and if he didn't give the okay, she wasn't allowed to buy it. If she did buy something, she would have it sent to a friend's house so that Stephen wouldn't find out. But the controlling behavior didn't stop there. He would track her cell phone in order to know exactly where she was when she wasn't at work.
Oh my God.
And going along with that emotional abuse, when Stephen and Brianna were out, either together or even with her family, he would openly and publicly comment on women he saw and mention how attractive they were. He would even take pictures of these women, which is just super creepy in general. Like, whether you're single or not, just that's creepy and disgusting. Yeah. So soon this behavior was noticed by her family. But like I mentioned before, Brittany and Brianna were very close, but Brianna didn't really discuss her marriage with her sister. Eventually, Brittany had planned to move to Hayden. I'm not exactly sure why, but overall she was really excited to be closer to her sister. It worked out well because Brittany and Brianna were able to spend more time together, and Stephen was available if Brittany needed any help around the house with small maintenance problems or what have you, because he was like that kind of handyman.
Yeah.
But Brittany recalls that when Stephen would be over, he would make really negative and mean comments about Brianna, mentioning that she had a shopping addiction and that she was horrible with money, always spending way too much. To her sister.
It drives me insane when people like think that because you're friends with someone, they can like bitch to you about the things that might annoy them or whatever. And I'm like, okay, in certain circumstances, maybe, but only if we're close enough friends that it's like a friend circle. But if I don't know you and you're complaining to me about my friend or
well,
sibling,
it was her brother-in-law at this point.
Still.
Yeah. No, yes. Exactly.
You know, I'd been like, okay, well, I'm gonna go tell her.
Exactly. So finally, in February of 2020, Brianna had had too much and was ready to get out of her marriage and away from Stephen. Not just for the reasons I mentioned, but an interesting side note, Brianna had ADHD and had been prescribed Adderall for it. She would have to hide...
girl.
Yeah. She would have to hide her medication because if she didn't, Stephen would steal it. She also began looking into the options available to her for divorce. But this is also the scariest and most dangerous time of any abusive relationship, the time when the abused person decides to leave.
Yeah.
So that's a very scary time.
Absolutely.
So Brittany recalls that in February, which happens to be just a month before Brianna was found dead, Stephen had begun acting very odd and in an inappropriate way.
Towards...
You'll see.
Okay.
So on February 25th, Brittany received a text from Stephen that she found very inappropriate, strange, and just downright odd. The text said, quote, "If your sister asks if you ordered us a sex swing, tell her yes and that it will be here Friday sometime. I've got her fired the F up about it." Laughing face emoji. "Matter of fact, in about 15 min, text her and say, hey, just an FYI, y'all swing should be in on Friday." Then he did the little emoji with the tongue sticking out winking.
Men are so stupid.
And so we'll
like
move on.
What?
Right.
Like, oh my goodness.
I know.
We're not even halfway through this story.
No, we are not. So on Monday, March 2nd, 2020, Brianna was just finishing up her 12-hour shift. She had worked the night shift from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is just an awful shift in general. I am going to do a little timeline from here on out. So as I'm reading different articles and stuff about this case, it tended to jump kind of all over the place.
Sure.
So I thought the best way to organize it would be chronologically in some order. So bear with me if we're kind of all over the place. So at 7:53 a.m., Brianna received a call from Stephen. She hadn't yet arrived home because she was still doing all of the end of shift stuff. By the time she drove and arrived home, it was about 8 a.m. But apparently when she got home, Stephen was still asleep, as it was only about 8 a.m. At 12:02 p.m., Brittany got a text from Stephen that said, quote, "Did you figure out where to go to get your tag at school?" That didn't strike her odd at the time because Brittany had been trying to get her car registered and was having a hard time because of COVID, because this was the start of COVID.
Right.
So far, all seemed normal up to that point. That was around 12:12 p.m. when Stephen called 911. He said that when Brianna arrived home, he was still sleeping. At some point, he woke up. Stephen was outside on the front porch when he heard a thud. He knew Brianna must be in the bathroom, and he just thought the thud was her dropping her phone, which does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not thinking anything of it, Stephen said he went out to get some errands done sometime around 11 a.m. Not thinking anything of it, Stephen said he went out to get some errands done. He was gone for about an hour, running to the bank and the dump. He returned home about an hour later, and that is when he realized that the bathroom door was still closed and that Brianna was still in there. Trying the bathroom door, he realized it was locked and tried calling her name, but she didn't answer. He was able to unlock the door himself by using his nail. He tried to open the door but still had a hard time opening it fully. But he was able to peek inside, and he saw his wife's feet, which were at this time blue. She must have been leaning against the door. He pushed through and was finally fully in the bathroom, where he found Brianna unresponsive. This is when he called 911. EMS was dispatched at 12:14 p.m., and Stephen was told to perform CPR and chest compressions until they arrived. They arrived just 4 minutes later at 12:18 p.m. When EMS arrived, they made a note that Deputy Leslie Moore of the Blount County Sheriff's Department was already on scene in uniform. He was there before they had arrived and before any other police officers had arrived at the scene. This is weird because some sources say he wasn't even on duty at that time. He had been working earlier in the day at the time that he was on the scene, but when he was there, he wasn't supposed to be working. Earlier that day, witnesses say that Deputy Moore had been at the Oneonta Dam. That dam is only about 40 minutes away from Hayden, Alabama. I checked. But like I said, the deputy arrived before EMS did. EMS arrived at 12:18 p.m., so if he got there before EMS, he would have had to leave the dam between 11:40 and 11:50 a.m., which would indicate that an emergency had already occurred by the time he had gotten the call, so before Stephen had called 911. And so remember how Stephen sent a text to Brittany about the car thing at 12:02? He would have already had called Moore at the time of the emergency, so he had texted it more about this emergency, and then he just texts Brittany this super, nonchalant thing about a car. It's just weird.
Nothing is adding up.
And another thing I should probably mention here, to add on to how weird it is that Deputy Moore showed up early, he's actually Stephen's uncle. So, we have a family member? So at 12:21 p.m., Ginger Thomas, Brittany and Brianna's mother, received the devastating call from Stephen informing her that her daughter Brianna had tried to kill herself. Just 2 minutes later, at 12:23 p.m., Brittany then received her phone call from Stephen with the heartbreaking news. But let me tell you how he decided to deliver this news. He first asked Brittany calmly what she was doing. She had just been finishing up her lunch at work. He then calmly said, quote, "Your sister's done tried to kill herself. You better get over here."
Done tried?
Mm-hmm. Done tried to kill herself.
Oh my God.
The first thought that went through Brittany's head was that this had to be some kind of sick joke, but she quickly realized that Stephen wasn't kidding. She left work immediately and sped to their house. She got there much faster and in a much shorter time than the drive usually takes, arriving at about 12:42 p.m. This is when Brittany pulled up and saw all of the ambulances and police cars. Walking into the house, Brittany first noticed Stephen sitting on the couch staring at the floor between his two upset parents, Jeff and Debbie Nix. His sister, I think it's pronounced Edie. It's E-A-D-Y.
Yeah, that seems right.
So his sister Edie Nix was there as well, meaning that his whole family had arrived before she even got there. No, they didn't live close.
Oh.
Right around this time, right when Brittany arrived, Stephen's sister Edie left the house. She was gone for about an hour. Stephen was constantly getting in the way of the paramedics because he was very concerned with the trash can that was in the bathroom and was trying very hard to get to it to empty it. He was trying to empty the small trash can into a bigger trash can, but that one was full, which wouldn't really make sense if he had been to the dump. When he finally got that all sorted out, he took those trash bags and threw them into the bed of his truck. Afterwards, Stephen asked a police officer if he would still be entitled to the life insurance payout if the death was ruled a suicide.
All suspicious behavior.
Yes. So at 12:54 p.m., after resuscitation efforts were unable to do anything, Brianna was pronounced dead. First responders stated that Brianna's body had been cold when they had arrived, which indicated that she was already beyond help when 911 had been called. So by now, the police are looking around and trying to figure out what exactly happened. It is technically still a crime scene.
Right.
In the sink in the bathroom, paramedics had found a needle that had a couple of drops of blood on it. They assumed this was the needle that had been used by Brianna, to inject drugs. It was an 18-gauge needle, and side note, 18-gauge needles are much larger than what is typically used to inject illicit drugs. There were also other unopened needles of varying sizes throughout the bathroom, mostly 18 and 24 gauge. Again, all too large for recreational drug use.
Right, and why would there be different sizes? Right,
and she's a nurse, so she would know what drugs are used, or what needles are used for what.
Exactly.
Like, she wouldn't be getting needles that are too big.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
She would know exactly what she's doing.
Yes. So around 1 p.m., the police took her phone to check it for clues or just see what they could find on there to help figure out what had happened to Brianna. They tried to open the phone but realized it was locked, so they asked Stephen if he could give them the code. But he wouldn't.
He wouldn't?
Thankfully, Brittany knew the code and unlocked it for them. There was actually a lot found on her phone, so let's go over that.
Oh, jeez Louise.
On her phone was a Facebook video that had only been partially watched. There were also a few notifications on the phone which she hadn't checked. One was a missed call from Stephen from 7:53 a.m. Because the notification was still there, it meant she hadn't checked it. But remember, Stephen said he had been sleeping at this time. Later on in the investigation, police had asked Stephen about this phone call, as it just didn't work with the timeline he had provided.
Right.
His answer: he must have woken up and called her at that time, but he just doesn't remember.
What?
Yeah. Another notification was a reminder for an appointment that Brianna had for the following day. So both of these notifications were still there from 8 a.m., meaning that she hadn't checked her phone since at least 8 a.m.
If you have an appointment
for the next day, but you know.
But still, like, if that's, they always say, like, if that's, you know, if you're in the mindset of committing suicide and things like that, like, you don't make plans.
Exactly.
You don't make future plans. And you, like, tie up loose ends and things like that.
Yeah. So they also found some texts from the night before between Stephen and Brianna while she had been at work. Brianna had been suspicious that Stephen had been having an affair. They had been arguing over text about that. The affair, she assumed, was with a woman named Stacy Robertson. Before he started dating Brianna, Stacy and Stephen had met at a hospital where they were both working, Stephen as a janitor and Stacy as a secretary. They were seeing each other while Stephen and Brianna were dating. So she was absolutely justified in her belief that something was going on.
Yeah.
Clearly, this was suspicious, and the police wanted the phone to look further into it, but guess who said no? Stephen said they could look at it while he was there, but they weren't permitted to take it.
What? How does he have a say?
Because it's technically still his property.
Oh, because she was his wife. That's stupid.
Continuing on with their investigation, the police asked if they could take a look at Stephen's phone, his truck, and Brianna's car. He said they could absolutely look at Brianna's car, but for everything else, they would need a warrant. And I guess in one sense, I get when people lawyer up or get warrants. I get it. But also at the same time, it does make you look suspicious.
Right, especially if you're the one who's saying that it's a suicide. Why would it matter?
Right. There's a bug, sorry. We have, like, fruit flies, and I don't know where they are coming from. I know, it's so freaking annoying. We don't know what plant. Okay. While the police were obtaining the warrant, Stephen's dad went to Stephen's truck and tried to secretly move the bag of trash from his truck into his own car. But thank goodness, the police were like, no. They looked in the bag and found black gloves, syringes, and other suspicious things that are now considered evidence. The official search warrant stated, quote, there is probable cause to believe there is evidence related to the death of redacted, located in the phone number, redacted, and in the vehicle type, due to a trash bag from the house being placed in the bed of a truck while deputies were on scene. A syringe was found in the sink of the bathroom where redacted was found. So in the actual search warrant, it had those parts kind of like whited out.
Sure.
At 1:45 p.m., Brittany noticed that Stephen's sister, Edie, still hadn't returned to their house yet, and she hadn't been present when Brianna had been declared dead. At 3:30 p.m., with the preliminary investigation having been completed, Brianna's body was removed from the house by the coroner. Later that night at 7 p.m., Brittany was at home after this long, horrible day, and who does she get a call from? None other than Stephen. He said that he had an explanation for the call to Brianna at 7:53 a.m. He didn't explain anything.
Why are you calling her to tell her this explanation?
He just said that he wanted to play a prank on Brianna. Nothing else, it was just a prank. He didn't explain what the prank was. He just said it was a prank. He also said that he had gone through Brianna's phone and had found some concerning things in her Google searches. She had apparently searched how to kill yourself and how to kill your dogs, because they had dogs.
Were the dogs dead?
So, March 3rd, the day after the incident, at around 5:30 p.m., Brittany and her mother Ginger headed over to Brianna and Steven's house to grab clothes for the funeral house to dress Brianna in. They spent time grabbing a dress for her and spent time in her underwear drawer, making sure to grab a pair out of there as well. On March 4th, around 10:30 a.m., Brittany and her mom Ginger, Steven and his parents Jeff and Debbie go to the funeral home to make the arrangements for burial and the service. Brittany believes that Brianna's body was already at the funeral home at this time. At 2:44 p.m., Brittany received a call from Steven. He said he had something important to show her and she needed to come over immediately. When she arrived, Steven was at the house with his parents and his sister. He brought her to the back bedroom and said that his sister had been going through things back there and had found 2 vials of fentanyl. Fentanyl is an opioid and is usually manufactured for severe pain management, but recently the recreational use of fentanyl has increased, and along with it has come opioid abuse and many, many overdoses and deaths related to it. Steven showed Brittany the vials. He also said that he himself had found a Tide Pod bag that had been full of needles, but oddly enough, he didn't end up showing her these. Police had already searched Brianna and Steven's bedroom, and they hadn't found anything, like any additional drugs other than the fentanyl that had been in the bathroom with Brianna.
Interesting.
Yeah. So after their conversation, I guess they were all talking, like Brittany, Steven, and his family. Brittany mentioned that she needed to head to the funeral home tomorrow to do her sister's hair and makeup. But Steven's parents were weird and told her that she shouldn't go, almost begged her not to. They said that they didn't want her to have to see her sister after having an autopsy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess, you know, in the general scheme of things, you wouldn't want to see someone in that condition.
Yeah, but to beg someone not to go versus recommending someone not go are very different.
Right. So she left anyways. Side note about the autopsy, it was performed, but what I found to be weird is that later the information was only released to Steven. And being a, in my own words and opinion, piece of shit, he didn't share those results with Brianna's family.
That's so suspicious.
Right. And I feel like, you know, you would think like, oh, the family should get it. But I think it's something with the whole like next of kin. And, you know, like when you're married, you have different.
But still, I feel like that's information.
Right.
Like they would, like, it's almost like when you're in the ICU, like your spouse can go, but so can family members.
Yeah. I don't know.
So you would think that it'd be the same
maybe
thing?
it's something weird.
I don't know.
So Brittany talked with a coworker of Brianna's, and that coworker shared with Brittany a photo of vials currently being used at the hospital. They did not match vials found in Steven and Brianna's home.
So she...
yeah, exactly.
The easiest place to access drugs.
Right.
She didn't even get it from there.
Yeah. So where would she have gotten them from?
Exactly.
Later that evening, after Brittany had left, reports from people I assume said that night a woman had been seen at Steven and Brianna's house. A woman named Stacey Robertson. The woman Brianna thought Steven had been having an affair with. Side note, a week later, the pair were seen out eating at a restaurant.
God, this guy's disgusting.
Yep. On March 5th, at some point during that day, Brittany went to the funeral home to get her sister's body ready for the service. She was walked into the room with Brianna's body, and Brittany was immediately shocked. Her sister was covered in bruises, all of different sizes and stages of healing, all over her arms, legs, hands, feet, and torso.
Oh my God.
She even had defensive marks and bruising on her right hand. This was shocking to Brittany as she had just seen her sister a few days ago, and there had been no bruising. In addition to the bruising, Brittany also saw over 80 fresh needle marks all over Brianna's body, which had been made with a large gauge needle. She also noticed that none of them appeared to be old. She had no old track marks either, and a lot of the needle marks were in places that Brianna wouldn't have been able to reach on her own with her dominant hand, like the back of her elbows and even her back.
What?
Obviously noticing her shock, the funeral director said that even on drug addicts, she had never seen anything like this.
Oh my God.
Brittany did the right thing and took pictures of all of the bruises. No odd bruises had been noticed by any of Brianna's coworkers earlier either, even as recently as her last shift. Brianna wasn't a drug user and wasn't suicidal. Her work had random drug tests roughly every 6 months, and she passed every single one. And the lack of old track marks meant that she didn't have a history of drug abuse, really ever. And this is just plain weird. So later that day, and this is just disgusting.
The whole thing's weird.
Later that day, Steven had called Brittany. He said he needed a haircut. So making conversation, Brittany said that her son also needed one. This is what Steven said to that. Quote, "Good, tell him he can come with me and get some titties rubbed on him too." He then laughed. Like, what the hell? And that's only 4 days later, or 3 days later.
What a disgusting individual.
Yep. So March 6th at 10:30 a.m., Brianna's service began with a family visitation. During the service at 1 p.m., Steven showed up but didn't speak to anyone during or after. He had been on his phone during the entire thing. Brittany noted that he looked to pretend to cry, though no tears were produced. At 2:30 p.m., Brianna was laid to rest at Mount Zion Cemetery with her entire family surrounding her. That night around 7 p.m., Brittany was having people over at her house to celebrate Brianna. Stephen showed up. One of Brittany's friend's husbands was outside smoking, and good old Stephen went out to join him. He and the husband ended up talking, and I guess were on some sort of topic, because at one point Stephen mentioned casually that he knew a lot of high-up people in Blount County, and that pretty much he could get away with anything he wanted. But not long after that, Stephen found out that the husband was a police officer, and he said that Stephen's entire demeanor changed when he learned that fact. He quickly left the party. The husband told Brittany that Stephen seemed like he was guilty of something based on just the whole interaction they had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. March 7th, Brittany had told Stephen that there were a few of her sister's things that she wanted. One specific thing was in a purse that Brittany had gifted to Brianna in 2019. So Stephen told Brittany she could come over and get the purse and the other things she wanted. When she arrived, Stephen gave her a small purse, and Brittany said it seemed like he really wanted her to open it. So she did, and inside she found a used needle that had what looked like fresh blood on it.
Oh my God!
There was also an old receipt from 2017 in the purse. Brittany stated that from 2019 on, Brianna only used the purse that Brittany had gotten her, not the smaller one. So she wouldn't have had her. She wouldn't have.
There
been
was
using
no
that purse.
reason for it to be in there.
Yep. Brittany also told Stephen that she wanted one of Brianna's sweatshirts and one other thing of her sister's. Stephen opened up her sister's underwear drawer. Inside the drawer, he found more needles and a bloody napkin. But remember how before the funeral, when she and her mother went to the house?
Yeah, she already looked through that drawer.
They'd looked through the drawer and there had been nothing in it.
So that means someone had to put it there.
Yep.
Someone being Stephen. I keep having to remind myself that I have to verbally respond because I'm so engrossed in this story right now. And my jaw just keeps opening up instead of actually saying something.
So I don't know if you've sensed this yet, but I'm not the biggest fan of Stephen.
No.
So to add to this, on March 10th, literally 8 days after his wife was confirmed dead, he texted Brittany saying, quote, "Should I keep all these dang high-dollar sex toys, or what should I do? Crazy question to be asking my sister-in-law, LOL."
So just...
I get people grieve differently. I get you want to kind of get back to your life. I get you want to act as, things are normal and kind of, But texting that to your sister-in-law, your wife's sister, and texting that.
Yeah. For someone who's clearly trying to get away with murder, he's not making himself look very unsuspicious.
Finally, on May 22nd, Brianna's toxicology report was published. The Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences had performed the tests. In her system, they found therapeutic levels of amitriptyline, amphetamine, sertraline, and nortriptyline. I don't know drugs, so...
I was going to say, I don't know what any of that means.
Well, this isn't weird or unexpected or excessive. Brianna was prescribed anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications, as well as Adderall. So what was found in her system and at the levels they were found would be consistent with the medication she took.
Oh, okay.
But the shocking part, they had found 5.1 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl in her blood.
Oh my God.
This is 2.1 nanograms over a fatal dose. A fatal dose is 3 nanograms. In her body, they found 5.1. Brianna's death certificate was issued on June 2nd, with an immediate cause of death being listed as overdose and manner of death being ruled as an accident. How the injury occurred was listed as synergistic effects of multiple drugs. The family had been working with an independent investigator at this time, Gavin Fish, who, information I got from him. He told them that a medical examiner told him that the autopsy reports are, quote, almost completely based on the circumstance of the death.
I was just gonna say.
Meaning that they pretty much will make the cause of death whatever they are told by the sheriff or coroner's office, which means that the reports that the medical examiner received from the Blount County Sheriff's Office were wrong. Gavin Fish said that the whole deal with the report smells like a cover-up because he had friends in high-up places.
And that's ridiculous if that's what I get on, using what is reported to you as, a way to help determine a cause of death, but if you just look at who she was, she's a nurse. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not saying it's murder, to say it's accidental, there's no way she would accidentally give herself too much.
Yeah, accidentally give herself 80 injections.
Right.
And also, I don't even think you could give yourself that many because after one injection...
Well, right. I'm just talking about the amount that she had in her system.
Yeah.
Accidental seems ridiculous because if you're a nurse and you have knowledge about how much is a deadly amount and you're going to go over that.
Absolutely.
How is that an accident?
In late June of that year, Stephen received Brianna's life insurance payout, which was estimated to be about $160,000.
Ah, so that's why he wanted it to be accidental.
Because if it's suicide, you don't get money. Mm-hmm. And with that money, he began making expensive purchases.
I'm sure he did.
And being a great guy, he even boasted about it in person and online. Yet another weird thing that goes along with this life insurance policy, 6 months before her death, Brianna had paid a premium that would double her life insurance policy. This is odd because people typically only do this if they're sick or have children. She did not have children and she was not ill, so her family has no idea why she would do this in the first place. What's more, this is right around the time the couple had filed for bankruptcy, meaning that when Stephen received the life insurance payout, all of that money would go to him and none would go to paying off debts because technically they wouldn't have any because they went bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Around this time, he had also become very reclusive, never really leaving the house either. Many believe that he was living off of the insurance money. So do we remember Stacey Robinson?
Yes, we
Robertson?
do.
Well, about 6 months later in September, she moved into Brianna's old house with Stephen. They even renamed Brianna's dogs. Like her beloved dogs. And what's more, Mackenzie's face is just jaw-dropped.
I don't have words.
I had the same face as I was reading through all of these notes, like when I was
God.
making mine. Yeah. So what's more, Brianna's mom had made her necklace years before. Stacy posted a photo of herself on Facebook wearing the necklace. Mm-hmm. And I have that in all caps in my notes.
For those of you who can't see me, my jaw is just repeatedly open. It's not that I'm ignoring Lauren. It's just that I have no words.
So around this time, Stephen had told Brianna's family that he had ordered a headstone for her from overseas, and he asked if they could help him pay for it. He also said that it would take several months to arrive as it was coming from overseas. Mm-hmm. So about a year after the whole incident, in March of 2021, Brianna's mother sent Stephen a text. It said, quote, "Stephen, this has been a very long year. You mentioned before Christmas that a headstone had been ordered. When is it going to be delivered?"
Simple question, I answer.
Yeah. Well, Stephen never replied to her.
Rude.
But rather showed this to his mother, who proceeded to post a passive-aggressive post on Facebook saying that her son had ordered the headstone and that it was taking so long because he had ordered it to be a specific picture of her etched on it. She also wrote about how they are missing part of their family and that Brianna was always with them. This also occurred on the anniversary of her death. So one part of Stephen's mom's post said, quote, "There is concern over Brianna's headstone, and some may say Facebook isn't the place for that to be addressed."
It's not.
No, it's not. Brianna's father was quick to comment saying, quote, "You are absolutely right. Facebook is no place for this nonsense, especially today." Which, yeah, handle it like an adult, Stephen, and reply to Brianna's mom's text.
Absolutely.
Then, one of Stephen's mother's awful friends commented calling Brianna's father a moron. Like, are you kidding me?
People suck. Oh.
So finally, in April of 2021, Brianna's headstone was installed at her final resting place. So that is the timeline and all of the events surrounding the case, but there are a few other points I need to add and want to touch on.
Oh my God, there's more!
There is more. So first off, Brittany had stated that the home wasn't being treated like a crime scene from the very beginning. So first off, we have all the shit surrounding Stephen and the trash bags. Roy, I want to see what he's chewing. I think it's just his food, but... Oh my gosh, there's a bee!
There's a bee?
There's a bee!
What?
Ah! Okay, so before I touch on those facts, my dog Roy was being very quiet. And then all of a sudden, I hear this, like, weird noise. So I was like, oh, he has to be eating. So I go to check. No, he had found a wasp or something that had made it into our house, like a yellow jacket kind of thing. I don't know. He killed it. And then I had to smush it because it was still moving.
I don't know.
I don't know. But so we killed it. And then Mackenzie burned it. And we flushed it down the toilet. It's been a thing.
I was going to say, you could keep the whole transaction in there.
Roy has this thing he does, though, where, like, we'll be walking, and if he sees anything buzz by him, he goes to try to chomp it.
That's kind of funny.
It can be a big bug. It can be a freaking, just, like, a dragonfly. I don't know.
Have you seen those pictures when dogs get stung by a bee?
Oh, it's so cute. I know it's so sad, and they're probably in so much pain, but it's cute. But we didn't hear Roy yelp or anything, so I think we're good.
And I burned it.
So, now onto these facts I want to touch on.
Right.
So first off, Brittany has stated that the house wasn't being treated like a crime scene even from the very beginning. So first we have all the shit surrounding Stephen and the trash bags and him rushing to change the trash and all the other weird stuff I mentioned about him.
Right.
I could go over the entire episode again mentioning stuff about him. But even before that, the police hadn't removed anyone from the house. Stephen and his parents were allowed to stay in the house the whole time. His uncle, who was technically not working at the time, was still walking around as an officer. And all of the evidence that had been collected at the crime scene was never put into an evidence locker. So where did it go? Well, it sat on the initial lead investigator's desk for 15 months.
Oh my God.
She had been removed from the case and the sheriff's department for unknown reasons. And the case just kind of sat there. Photos from the crime scene showed police handling and dealing with evidence with bare hands. So clearly that makes me, along with many others, believe that the case was handled inappropriately from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Sadly, this is a feeling that the Nugents have as well. Though I couldn't find the other versions, apparently Stephen's story of the events leading up to him calling 911 changed 3 times. He never had an alibi for the errands that he claimed that he ran. And remember how I said that the family never got the autopsy results?
Correct.
Well, the reasoning behind why they never were given the results was because they were told that the case was still under criminal investigation. Well, if it was still under investigation, then why did Stephen get the insurance payout? Typically, that doesn't happen that way. But I spoke to Brittany recently, and she said that they did actually finally get the autopsy report.
Oh, good.
In the autopsy, they did not test Brianna's blood to look for any acid or chemicals, which would be an ingredient in a hot shot. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. It refers to any narcotic injected into the bloodstream for an intensely quick rush. The high may not last very long, but the damage can prove long-lasting on many levels. So they never tested for that.
Oh, my goodness.
So why wasn't her blood tested? Especially when they believe that she died from a drug overdose.
Absolutely.
And now, the family has posted a wrongful death lawsuit against Stephen.
Good.
On the Justice of Brianna Facebook page, Brittany posted, quote, "We have no control over a criminal investigation and what they do or do not decide to investigate, what evidence they do or do not pursue, and what ultimately their conclusion will be. However, we do have the ability to fully investigate the facts surrounding Brianna's death through the civil wrongful death lawsuit. That lawsuit gives the family, the investigators, and attorneys the ability to, through subpoenas and other discovery means, conduct a private, thorough, and fair investigation. We will finally have access to all of the evidence, including the most basic of evidence, such as the autopsy, which we still have been denied full access to." This was before.
Correct.
The Nugent family investigators and attorneys are now 100% focused on the civil wrongful death lawsuit that will give us access to the proof and answers that we've been asking for over 2 years. And unfortunately, since all of this, Stephen won the estate back. The Nugent family couldn't do anything about this, though, because they didn't have the subpoena power to get any documents that would be needed to fight that. Also, the lawyer that the family ended up hiring was not prepared for probate court. So probate court is the court that handles matters that deal with wills, estates, censorships, matters of anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So literally everything that would have dealt with the estate that Stephen won.
Right.
Their lawyer never returned their calls, texts, or emails after hearing that Stephen won the estate. They had 48 hours at the time to appeal and still get subpoenas and the necessary documents to fight the whole estate thing, but their lawyer literally never got back to them.
What the hell?
Yep. The lawyer before had told them that he could help them open the estate, but he let it slip right out from under them because he didn't do his job. He never subpoenaed anyone to get more information to help the Nugents fight to keep the estate. There are some things you can do, though, if you're able to help the family. There's a Justice for Breana Noojin Nix GoFundMe, so we'll post that link. Anything that can help the family with the many expenses that they have been faced with would help. Also, if you have any legal knowledge or know a lawyer that could help, please reach out. There's also a tip line at 205-282-0740. We'll also post that as well if you have any information at all. So I'll post these links where we can, so you can help the family if you're able to. Mm-hmm. But that is the sad and tragic death of Breana Noojin Nix.
Wow. That's
yes.
That's so unfortunate.
I was reading over this when I was starting my case, and I was reading over all these different documents and stuff, and I had the same facial expressions you had the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's
awful.
And it's crazy that we're not in law enforcement.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of knowledge, but you just read this from the facts alone,
Mm-hmm.
and anyone with any amount of sense can see that something doesn't add up here.
Yeah. And I hate to use the typical trope, but the husband always did it. That's our opinion. That's not a legal opinion. That's just based on the facts that I have seen.
Our personal
opinion. That is what it feels like to me looking at these facts.
Correct.
But,
Well, we'll definitely put information to support the family on our support page on our website.
Because I had found they had a petition, one of those change.org petitions, I believe, mm-hmm. to get the autopsy results opened. So they must have gotten enough support on that. Absolutely. Because they did get the autopsy reports. Yeah. Though it's not, the reports we wanted or what were helpful at all, they still got it. So hopefully by enough people, reaching out and being involved and learning more about this case, something can change.
Seriously.
And what was so bad was Brittany was like, I know we're not going to get any justice. And she's like, but I don't ever want this to happen to someone else.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
hopefully bringing her story to light will
I hope so.
Help.
I hope so.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I really wanted to make sure I did a good job because, when people reach out to every case is important that we cover, but it just hits a little bit closer to home when someone actually reaches out to you and asks you to cover the case.
Yeah.
So we always want to make sure we do the case justice, but in those instances, it's just a little bit, it's different.
Absolutely.
All right. So on to a different note, Mackenzie. What are you covering today?
Moonshine.
Moonshine.
Changing it up a bit.
I have a moonshine candle. I got it in Kentucky.
Well, mine is not about candles. It's about the alcohol.
It was from a moonshine distillery.
Ah,
Yes.
well. I'm going to cover the Dan Brasher disappearance when 3 men went missing from Morris, Alabama in 1956.
I am not surprised we are, covering moonshine when we're talking about Alabama.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to do it, because I felt like,
yeah.
it fit.
Yeah.
And what's kind of weird, a couple of things, that our cases take place, I think, pretty close to each other.
Well, yeah, you said Blount County too.
And, okay, this might be a dumb question, but area codes are based on, like...
The area in the state?
Yeah, like...
I think so.
Okay.
Well, because, like, Virginia is 703 and 571.
Right.
Massachusetts is 774.
Right. So...
Oh, did yours start with the same number as the tip code?
It started
Oh!
with 205. Wait, what was the number again?
205.
205, 325, 50?
No.
No, okay. Well, but
yeah, 205 is what it starts
so that
with.
sounds like it's in the same area.
Interesting.
And guess what the date is that these guys went missing?
Was it in 2020?
Yeah, it was March. No, it was 1956.
Oh. But it was in March?
March 3rd. I know.
Stop.
Isn't that weird?
Ew, that's so weird.
That's so weird.
Because we don't talk about our cases
No, we
ahead
don't.
of time. So that's, wow.
That's
Weird connections.
We're just always in sync, baby.
Oh my God.
So everyone knows moonshine is a large part of Southern culture in America. This case has ties to the moonshine industry and possibly the reasoning why the 3 men disappeared. Regardless of the reason, alcohol, legal or not, was definitely involved.
Oh, Joe and I went to this restaurant yesterday in Old Town, and it has a, like, pre-prohibition feel to it.
Oh, nice.
That's, like, their theme. It was really cool. The food was amazing. The drinks were amazing.
What's the restaurant?
The People's Drug. It's in Old Town, like, kind of outside of Old Town.
Okay.
And, like,
I was gonna say,
there's downtown.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then there's, like, still city, but, like, kind of outside of
Yeah,
downtown.
yeah.
It was there.
That sounds
It was
good.
so good. I got a spicy chicken sandwich and truffle fries. I love me some truffle fries. And then I got a watermelon whiskey drink.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds yummy.
Starting to like whiskey a little bit more. Every time I have a
love
drink with it in, I like it a little bit more.
Have I
So we're
made
getting there.
you the whiskey gingers before?
No.
Whiskey and ginger?
No.
Oh, it's so yummy.
Next time we record on a weekend or even after work.
No, what we should do is we should make ourselves some whiskey gingers and do research and see what turns up.
I love it.
Drunken episode.
Oh my God.
Before we dive in, I want to give a brief history of moonshine in America. It is a well-known aspect of American history and plays a large role in Southern culture. Like many things in American history, distilling alcohol did not originate from this country.
Oh.
Did you like I slid that in there?
I actually did not know that.
I learned a whole bunch, and there's some actually pretty cool things in here.
Okay.
So, it was brought to this country by the early Irish-Scottish settlers that came to the English colonies in America.
Okay, I guess that makes sense now that you say it.
Exactly. When researching the history of this well-known spirit, an article I read said there was a common anecdote given during this time, saying, quote, that when the English would arrive in the New World, the first thing they would do is build a church, the Germans would build a barn, and the Scotch-Irish would build a whiskey still. So there you go.
All the things you need.
Exactly. Essentials. Because the Scotch-Irish, Irish-Scottish, were not welcome in most places, they were forced to move to more remote mountainous areas to make their whiskey. That's why most of the things are
Yeah.
afar. After the Revolutionary War, the government wanted to begin taxing liquor, and that made prices soar. This was also the beginning of bootlegging, when few citizens wanted to pay taxes, let alone on their alcohol, so they began to make and sell it illegally. History shows that bootlegging began in the mid-1600s when it was bartered with Native Americans. Moonshine and bootlegging became a large revenue for families, especially farmers. As tensions between the government and the citizens increased, the well-known Whiskey Rebellion took place in Pennsylvania. Do you remember learning about that?
No.
Of course not. I did.
Oh. Wow, you're so much cooler than I am.
So, those of us who have been through the public school system in America would remember the rebellion because it was the first uprising post-war that was quickly diminished by the government. It established America's...
I wasn't good at history in high school or any time, so that's why it did not stick.
It's okay. For those of you that don't know what the Whiskey Rebellion is,
Thanks.
It was like most of the moonshine, like I said, was in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, leading up to the Revolutionary War, the colonists were think of like the Boston Tea Party thing.
Mm-hmm.
opposing taxes, things like that.
Yes.
So these people obviously did not want their alcohol to be taxed.
Yes.
So they had their own little rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Not very many people died. But the reason why it's well known in history was because this was after America has established themselves as a country. And they were like, no, this worked when we were trying to get our independence, but you can't do this now.
Oh.
So the government was like,
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why it's like
I gotcha.
important.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, moonshiners were mostly ignored until the Civil War when, the government didn't really care about them.
Yeah.
Until the Civil War, when the tax was again put on liquor and the government began cracking down on illegal distilleries. The Internal Revenue Service began shutting down large distilleries in major towns and cities, but moonshine thrived in rural southern towns and in the Appalachian region of the country, which, for those of you that don't know geography, is on the east. It's on the east.
Do you know geography?
I do. Just prattle. Of course, as Prohibition took place during the 1920s, moonshine distribution soared. Like I said earlier, this became a large part of families' income. This was especially true during the Great Depression of the 1930s. Although consuming and producing alcohol was now legal, making your own was not. The South was still a large producer of moonshine at the time. Fun fact, NASCAR was formed because of moonshine.
Oh.
In order to avoid tax collectors, mechanics would create high-powered vehicles that would navigate tough terrain and tight turns. Even with the most experienced drivers, most high-speed chases ended in death. However, out of these high-speed chases came the start of stock car racing, which then would lead to NASCAR.
That's really interesting.
Isn't that cool?
That is pretty cool.
See, not all history's lame. During World War II, the production of moonshine greatly decreased, in large part because the ingredients used to make it were part of the wartime shortage during that time.
No.
Then in the 1950s and 60s, new technological advances in moonshine distillation.
Oh.
Good word, right?
That is a good word.
Thank you. Hopefully I said it right.
It sounded good.
Led to an uprise in production. This is what the sentence says. About 90% of moonshine distilled at this time was distilled in the South. Oh, no, that does make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
You can buy moonshine in most liquor stores around the country today. Those of us who are known to frequent Gatlinburg, Tennessee, shout out Radford Greek Life, have maybe attended a moonshine tasting or two.
I have attended some in Kentucky. Tennessee and Nashville. They have, at the mall, they have a moonshine store.
Yeah.
And you can do like a little moonshine tasting.
Probably is it the Old Smoky something or other?
I don't know.
You know, okay.
I have my candle somewhere I could look at, but I don't know where that candle is.
To some, though, true moonshine is only the type made illegally, not what you can buy in a store.
Yes.
So,
can that, if it's made wrong, can't that make you blind? Is that still, a real thing?
Make you blind?
Yeah. Didn't it used to be that if you drank, alcohol that was made by someone, if they made it wrong, you could go blind?
I have no idea.
Have you ever heard that before?
Nope.
Really?
I could see how making it might make you blind if the alcohol gets in your eyeballs.
Oh, it was because if you drink methanol, you can go blind. And that's what during Prohibition, bootleggers were known to sell moonshine that contained methanol, and the practice continues abroad. And that was the main cause of blindness, is from drinking that.
Well, there you go.
Interesting. I knew I had heard that somewhere.
With the moonshine facts.
Thank you.
So, what does moonshine have to do with our case? Well, moonshine...
Oh, yeah.
Despite what you might think, this is not actually a history lesson. Although I would love to make it, but that's okay. So what does moonshine have to do with our case? Well, moonshine production was a large part of the income in this area of Alabama. Jefferson County lies towards the bottom of the Appalachian Mountains and provides a good environment for distilling in secret. The deep gorges and uneven hillsides provide a hidden landscape one would prefer when distilling illegal moonshine. Like I described earlier, creating moonshine was a large part of how a lot of these local families have made their income. So Billy Howard Dye, 19, his older brother Robert Earl Dye, 23, and their cousin Daniel Alec Brasher, 38, were known by family for going on wild benders. Sometimes they would disappear for days at a time. It was also rumored that this group of cousins would steal moonshine of other distillers, which was a big no-no.
Yeah, I can see that being incredibly dangerous, too.
Mm-hmm. It was a dark and stormy night.
Oh, as it always is.
Just kidding. It wasn't stormy, but it was raining. And it was also at nighttime. So, not sure if it was storming on the night of March 3rd, 1956, but the three cousins went out for their usual night of drinking and tomfoolery. The men were last spotted at Dan's mother's cabin in the woods. It is reported that a minor argument might have taken place, but it was just written off as a drunken skirmish, nothing serious. Mm-hmm. The men left the cabin around 1:30 a.m. to drop off Robert's wife at their home in Robinwood. They would also drop off another couple that they were with at the time.
Okay, because for a second I was like, well, if they've all disappeared, how are we to know that there was a minor argument?
Oh, this case is like, there's a whole bunch of theories about what happened.
Oh, ooh, I love things with theories.
Some reports claim that the men returned to Dan's mother's home around 2 or 3 a.m. before going to Billy's girlfriend's home for a party. The men were last seen in Billy's dark green 1947 Ford pickup truck. The family of the men did not think much of it when the three men did not return after a night out. They had assumed that the three were sleeping off their intoxication in a local jail somewhere. It was also known by their family that the men were involved with the creation of moonshine, and this could also be a reason why they were gone for days at a time.
Okay.
By the end of the week, when the men had not returned home, nor had they gone to collect their checks from construction work on the highway nearby that they were obviously helping with, their family began to worry. Dan's brother, Curtis Brasher, and their father went looking for the men in the nearby jails. After their search turned up empty, Curtis and his father filed a missing persons report. They were officially reported missing on March 8th, 1956, 5 days after the men were last seen. So, the investigation. Talking about, people who are involved with sketchy policemen.
A lot of similarities here.
At the start of the investigation, police had difficulty finding out information about the missing men. Locals were hesitant to trust police, which... given how some things go. Fair.
Yeah, and especially with moonshine.
Well, right. It's like if they're doing something illegal, they're not going to want to share stuff. Right. So locals were hesitant to trust police, especially given some of the illegal activity going on in the area. Eventually, they were able to determine a timeline of the events that occurred that night when they went missing, which I told you about.
Yes. Yes.
Billy's truck was last seen at his girlfriend's place on the night of March 3rd. A neighbor had told police that they heard gunshots coming from the house the men had been seen at. During the early morning hours of March 4th, the same neighbor saw some men carrying buckets of water from the outdoor faucet back into the house. Some say that the witness also saw men carrying shovels and pickaxes, but depended on where you read it from. One source I looked at said that there was no running water, which is why the neighbor was suspicious of them carrying this water back and forth, because there shouldn't have been running water.
Okay.
Now, it didn't specify whether that was the whole neighborhood or why there was no running water.
Yeah.
That's why it was sketch.
Okay. I mean, even if you had running water, I would still think it would be weird to carry buckets of water from, like, a shed inside.
Right, exactly.
The
witness also claimed that they saw a group of men leaving Billy's truck in another vehicle. And then the second vehicle returned, but Billy's truck did not.
Okay.
Another report came from a local store owner claiming that a man came in and bought a large quantity of Red Devil Lye, which is used to clean up blood stains.
Oh.
So... some of the sources I looked at said that this man, straight up said, "What can I use to get rid of bloodstains?"
Oh.
And that's what this man...
Oh, okay.
Right.
Because I was going to say, is that what it advertises? Like, gets rid of bloodstains?
Right. No, apparently this guy was just brazen enough to be like, how do you get this out of a carpet?
Okay.
But it's not clear if any of these leads were followed up on by police. What I found interesting is, when you're reading about this case... all of them were talking about how there's this Red Devil's Lye that needed to be cleaned up and whatever. Description of the man?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No description of any of these men going in and out of these trucks, in and out of the store.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point.
There was no description of nothing.
Huh.
Yeah. Search parties were sent out and covered 20 to 25 square miles to find the men. Caves, roadways, woods, and abandoned mines were searched. No stone was left unturned. No trace of the men or the truck was ever found. There was one report from a man who lived 60 miles away in Blount County. He said he heard a bulldozer being used to bury the car near Highway 79 in Pinson.
To bury the car?
Yeah.
That's very specific.
Right. So this was also, I think, around the time of the Highway Something or Other Act. Basically when America decided to build all the interstates that we got. And so there was a lot of construction, which is why these guys were working on these roads.
Okay.
Highway 79 was being built during this time. So it wasn't weird that there was a bulldozer there because it was being built. What was weird was that these reports apparently said that they deliberately saw this bulldozer burying a car.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the part that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no evidence that shows proof of any of these claims, and the case went cold.
As it does.
Curtis Brasher grew increasingly frustrated about the lack of effort put into finding his brother and cousins. He repeatedly wrote to state officials and even the FBI. the Hoover guy, J. Edgar Hoover.
Uh-huh.
That guy.
Yeah.
He wrote to him.
Oh.
Well, because it
Back then, it seemed like you could just, like, write to him.
Well, it was, I think, wasn't the FBI started in the 50s anyway?
All I know is he started it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's why.
Because there's a building down in D.C. The FBI building is called the J. Edgar Hoover Building.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. History.
Eventually, Deputy Tom Ellison was assigned to the cold case. Ellison had Highway 79 drilled in hopes of finding evidence of the missing men. By the way, this happened, like, I think in the 70s.
So a couple years later.
From 1956?
Yeah.
Couple?
Okay. Like 10 plus.
14.
Okay. More than 10. Like I said, 10 plus.
Okay.
I mean, in general terms of things, a couple years later.
Couple means 2.
If we're being technical about it.
Anyway, Highway 79 had been under construction at the time that the men went missing. Authorities even used naval sonar devices to see if there was any evidence of the car beneath the highway. They found pieces of scrap metal, but no car was ever found. The case went cold again, and Ellison was taken off the case.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool.
It went cold. He was taken off the case.
Yeah.
That
I just said
was
case twice.
Now cold.
There was a newspaper article written around this time in which Ellison claims that he was taken off the case because he was getting too close to solving this mystery. He believed that county officials were involved in the moonshine business, and it would also be why the other reports made by witnesses had been ignored or loosely investigated by police.
Okay.
Curtis Brasher continued his own investigation up until his death in the 1980s. With no success, unfortunately.
Aw.
In 1984, another state investigator on the case, O.M. Raines, told a reporter he also believed that the men were buried under the highway. He supported Ellison's claims that the reason the investigations were halted or disrupted was because county officials were involved in the moonshine trade.
Mm-hmm.
He also claimed 3 separate witnesses had come forward about the cousins' disappearance, none of which having to do with the bulldozers. That was an additional one, but nothing was further investigated. An ex-convict in Louisiana, T.J. Chamberlain, claimed to have been involved in the murder, saying that he was confessing because he wanted to clear his conscience. But then when authorities went to question him, there was inconsistencies in his story.
I don't know why criminals will do that. They'll, like, sometimes claim a crime that obviously isn't theirs.
Right.
It's like, what are you hoping to gain from this?
I have no idea. But he was never charged. So to this day, neither the men nor their truck have been found. However, like any good cold case, there are many theories about what happened to these men.
Of course.
So, theory numero uno. The most popular theory is that the cousins' involvement in the illegal moonshine business was to blame for their disappearance. It was no secret that these men had their hand in the moonshine trade, and was speculated that these men had stolen some moonshine.
That sounds like a very plausible theory.
Right. So, some ideas are that they stole from the county officials that could maybe be involved, which is why the investigation was stonewalled.
Oh, okay.
Possibly from another moonshine distiller.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, whomever they stole it from could possibly have killed the cousins and buried them under the highway.
Okay.
No evidence has been found to support this claim, but this is the one that, when I was looking at all the message boards, this is the one, everyone's like, oh, I'm from this area, or I've heard this story, and this is the version that we always hear.
Interesting.
It was definitely interesting to see, like, some people commenting about being, like, a great niece, or someone was their uncle, or their cousin, or something.
Yeah.
So they were just commenting that they were cousins. Unfortunately, they didn't give me more information.
How dare they?
Well, and I was looking up, like, this one person said, oh, yeah, I saw that it was front page of some magazine thing. Tried to Google that.
Yeah.
Couldn't find that. So take all of these with a grain of salt. Number 2, the more logical theory is that the men were involved in an accident. Given how intoxicated the men were, it's possible that while they were driving, they may have veered off the road into a possible swamp or river.
Oh.
It was also raining that night, and the men, when they were last seen, and given their state of mind, it's possible they crashed in a plane that was difficult to find.
Okay.
Place, not plane.
I was like, I'm just going to let you go with this. I was thinking like a plane, like an area.
So there was a couple people that commented about this, saying that they had, like, Google Maps the area.
Oh.
And some say that they could see a green truck. I'll get there in a second before you give me that look. And then this other person commented saying that they live in Morris, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, I don't know, fishing maybe, something. And they said that they've seen a weird green truck.
Interesting. So why can I not give you this face? Or will we get to it?
We'll get to it.
Okay.
The interesting thing, too, is that nobody thought to look in any local river places or
they thought to look and just decided not to.
Right. Like when they was talking about like this search party, like it was the woods, the caves, the mines, the things like that.
I feel like I wouldn't search the caves before I would search a body of water.
Right. Now, 1956 was a long time ago, so I'm not sure what it looks like. Theory number 3. A more common theory among the locals. So the first theory was like those who like live in Alabama and have heard the story. That's what it goes with. Some of the locals and those who say that they're family members of these missing men think that they have been shot by a local whose nickname was Redbird.
Oh.
He was a known moonshiner, and it was rumored that they might have stolen from him.
Okay.
Some say accidentally and didn't realize it. Some say on purpose.
How do you accidentally steal? Do they think they were stealing from...
accidentally stealing from him specifically.
Okay.
Like, I don't
so,
think
like, they maybe thought they were stealing from someone else, turned out to be him.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Accidentally steal something.
Yeah, right. So on some sites I found with this story, people had commented their own theories and their connections to this case. One person commented claiming to be the nephew of Redbird. One person commented saying that Redbird ordered the men to be executed and the men could have been dumped in one of the unused mines. One source said that there was hair found in one of the mines but was, quote, misplaced over the years. Law enforcement obviously has no evidence tying Redbird to these men.
Okay.
I also saw where, I think it was the Rains guy, he thinks that the brothers were killed, buried under the highway.
Okay.
And then the older cousin, murdered and buried in the local cemetery.
Why did they think they were split up?
I don't know.
Oh.
Didn't say.
Okay.
It would tell me a theory and no
explanation.
No explanation.
Okay.
So I have looked at the maps of this area and I was trying to figure out a possible route that these men could have taken.
Yeah.
Robinwood, which is where the men were driving back and forth from, is not, from what it looks like, it's not like technically a town anymore.
Okay.
It might have changed names or something like that. Part of where they said that what's his name's mom's house was a Sardis Road or in Sardis, Alabama. So I tried a couple different options. So Sardis, Alabama, if you look that up to Morris, Alabama, is 2 hours.
Okay.
Figured that'd be a little bit of a lengthy time.
That's a hike.
To drive intoxicated in the rain.
Oh, absolutely.
And nothing happens between that time.
I mean...
Especially if you go with this timeline that the mom gave. They were at her house, left, dropped those people off, and she said they came back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's no way that would have taken too much time.
No.
But then there's Sardis Road. That's a 10-minute drive.
Ah, that one sounds more likely.
It seemed like that might be the area that it was referring to just because...
And that's something where I could see someone, if they're intoxicated, they're like, okay, it's 10 minutes away.
Right.
It's 10 minutes back.
Exactly.
You know.
And they did it often.
Yeah.
Like they were known for drinking and driving, all that kind of good stuff.
Which is not good.
However, there is no big enough waterway that a truck could sink into.
Okay.
Like there was like creeks and stuff, but you would be able to see if a truck was there. So that's why I was like, okay, well, yes, that theory makes sense that they might be in a swamp or something. If you look at the map and all the possible places that they could have driven to,
there's just not one.
It's not close enough by from where I read these men were coming from.
Okay.
Now, it's been 60 plus years.
Yes.
There are some creeks and waterways around the area, but it's hard to know what it looked like back in 1956.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So that's why I was trying to like see if I could see the green truck on the satellite, or
because that's where my first thought was. I was like, oh, you could see the green truck.
There is a Facebook page. That this guy's he was kind of, I think, working on some sort of documentary for it. He's been asking for pictures, so there are some like pictures of family on there.
Oh, cool.
I saw one video of what I believe to be a family member kind of describing how he found out the news of what happened. I'm not sure who it was though, because there was no caption or anything for the video to say that this
Yeah.
is so-and-so. So I don't know.
Just here's a person saying how they found something.
Right, exactly. But if you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Jefferson County Police at 205-325-5069.
Wow, what an interesting little case.
And that is the mysterious disappearance of the Dan Brasher boys.
What do you think happened? Like, what's your theory?
Well, given the fact that 2 investigators are talking about that there's some hinky stuff involved with, you know, local officials, that seems to be the most plausible thing.
Okay.
Because, I don't know, I don't think they were buried in the part of the highway that people say. I think it was probably a different part because there was a lot of highway construction going on.
Well, yeah.
One of them, it was said that he was supposed to report for construction on, I think it was like Route 31, 35, something like that, which when you look at the map, that's like one of the major ones.
Okay.
It's like ones you can see when you zoom out all the way. And so given that, it seems to make the most sense that whatever happened at the girlfriend's house, and like I definitely think they're dead.
Yeah.
I definitely think they've died because of the moonshine. Who is exactly involved, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I definitely think they were buried somewhere, and it would make sense if someone who was a local had knowledge of these roads being built, which I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Because then if you bury it there, then it's going to get paved over and it's never going to be found.
Exactly.
Now, what I don't understand is it seems like it'd be a lot of work to bury a truck.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that, you know, bury the men, whatever. But there's enough waterways. Like, there was definitely a lake on the map that I saw that you could easily have driven the truck there and dumped it in the lake.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would bury a truck. That seems like a lot of extra work.
That does seem like a lot of work.
So, you know, unless, I mean, if you're really trying to get rid of evidence to make sure it's not found.
And I mean, if you have like a machine.
I did see one report where they said they tried to test the soil for like the type of oil.
Oh.
But
we didn't hear anything about it?
Nope.
Yeah, of course not.
Nothing was ever given. Things stopped like in December, I think.
Oh.
So, but even see, the interesting thing is like, okay, you have the sonar. They did dig stuff up, but nothing was found. So I'm like, okay, if we have the kind of technology that you could search that, then you'd think it would be there. So no one said anything about them just piecing out. Like, that was not on anybody's radar.
Yeah, and it wouldn't seem like, you know, if they haven't picked up their checks or like things like that. That would be something you would do before you peace out.
And one of the things I read was that, like, apparently they were big homebodies. Like, they hardly even went out to eat either. So it doesn't seem like they would just go. One had the idea that because they were involved with the moonshine trade themselves, it could have been, and because no one said anything until 5 days later.
Yeah.
It might not have been that they went and disappeared that night. It could have been a different night that they technically disappeared.
That is true, especially if they were on like a 5-day bender or like a multiple day one, you know.
And if they're delivering things places.
A lot of danger out there.
So.
And then that opens up the whole like area where it could have been.
Right. And what I found interesting, I was like, okay, so if they're at Billy's girlfriend's house and shots are heard. I didn't say anything about Billy's girlfriend.
Huh.
There was just so many things that were missing.
So many little holes in the story.
Right. That I was like, okay, you have this information. No. Like, even when it talked about the guy from the store. Just said a guy came in.
I think the connection that they might have been working with law enforcement seems very plausible as well.
I do too. What I also thought, before I really read into it, was they did peace out because they killed somebody. Or something went awry with them. They needed to cover it up. They made the truck disappear so that people would think that they're gone.
Do you think the brothers maybe killed the cousin or something like that?
You know, that's also a possibility.
Look at us here.
I know.
Making possibilities of the case.
No one seemed to think that they would just leave. But my first initial thought when I was reading about it was that they got in trouble for something, killed somebody, needed to cover it up.
Interesting.
But no one else was reported missing.
Oh, yep. So, there's that part kind of.
But it's like no description was made of the guy. Like, who just walks into a store and says, I need to clean up bloodstains?
Right.
Like,
you know, like if you go into a store and you buy like a knife, duct tape and plastic bags
And
or
there
like
was-
tarp. You're going to remember who's
Right.
buying this.
And you would think that it's like, okay, if he's reporting this to the police, that this happened on March 4th, the day after,
You'd remember.
you'd remember what they look like, but was a description even asked for? Or was it given and just not reported?
Yep. Things we'll never know.
Things we'll never know.
Well, that was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so.
Glad you tied some moonshine into it.
Thank you. I thought it would be fun.
Well, do you want to tell people where to find us?
You can find us at Scary State Pod on Twitter, a Scary State Podcast on Instagram, a Scary State Podcast on Facebook.
I got the website.
Thank you.
www.ascarystatepodcast.squarespace.com. Send us an email at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
We would love to do a listener episode where we talk about all the spooky things you guys have seen.
So send it to us, and also go to our GoFundMe.
Yes, if you go to our website and go to the support page, you'll see some of the cases that we have covered that you can give support to, including the one we talked about today, as well as giving support to the podcast.
Yes. So I think that's all we have for you.
That is all we have.
So stay scary.
Stay safe.